What's going on, YouTube? Dre knows back at it again, bringing you guys another video. So back at it here on Madden. As you guys can see, I'm actually in the middle of opening some training variety packs and just using really this video just as like a background, just to kind of set the vibes for what to expect for this video. I know obviously this is a little bit different than what I'm used to doing, but hopefully you guys are enjoying. This is some post commentary just from this video, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are new to the channel, first and foremost, thank you very much for coming through the channel. I appreciate you coming by, and first and foremost, go ahead, subscribe to the channel as we are back to posting consistently. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, go ahead and hit the like button as well. And then also, for those who are not aware, I actually do live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/DreKnowsTV. Go ahead and check me out. Been streaming a couple nights a week on there, having a lot of fun with you guys, just building up a little community going on over there, and we'd love to have you part of it. So let's go ahead, jump into this video, me just recording this voiceover while these training variety packs are opening. As you guys can see, we're not having too much luck, but really, this isn't the area of focus for tonight's video, or at least whenever I'm recording this. Obviously, it could be a little bit different compared to when you guys watch it, whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So as the title of the video would suggest, this video is my Madden 21 year in review, and this is going to be kind of more of like a podcast style. So if you guys are just hanging out, running some errands, whatever the case may be, just sit back, relax, enjoy some snacks, whatever the case may be, and just listen along. And obviously, if you guys want to engage, feel free to comment down below if you agree or disagree with me, or if you want to hit me up on Twitter as well. Not Twitch. It's just at Dre Knows TV. Feel free to DM or tweet at me, and I'd be more than happy to engage in that type of discussion with you. So, like I said, Madden 21 year in review. So, just to kind of really just start from the beginning of the year, obviously with Madden 21, it was a little bit delayed. Obviously this was probably the latest that we've ever actually gotten Madden this year, and I'm not sure if maybe that helped it, that hurt it. I mean, you really couldn't tell, whenever the game dropped. And I know obviously we're coming off of just what I would consider a pretty horrendous year with Madden 20, with how that kind of got settled in. Madden 20 was obviously the infamous year of just running stretch and dive, and then send 7, send 8 meta. And that was just obviously really, really frustrating to play against. So, it is what it is. I mean, obviously can't really change that. But I had high hopes, just because from the teases that the EA team put out there. Obviously, they were trying to not make the stretch, specifically anyways, as overpowered. And I would say just right off the bat, they kind of did a little bit better on that. I mean, the stretch wasn't nearly as a viable option as it was in years past, or at least from what I've seen. I didn't really have as much trouble. I'm not sure if maybe it's just because I've just played better defense or whatever. But I did notice at times, it would still kind of go back to those Madden 20 tendencies where the defenders, whether it be the linebackers or the DBs, whoever it was, would just take just some horrendous angles at the running back, and basically the running back would just run right by your defenders all the way for a touchdown. Again, like I said, not nearly as frequent as it was in Madden 20, but still something that we saw throughout the year. So let's go ahead, just start at the beginning of the year. What was it, August, September when the game dropped? And obviously probably the big thing that was going kind of crazy was, again, people were still running the ball also, just because at the time, not very many people knew too many OP offenses. But I mean, for the most part throughout the year, the OP offense was pretty much fairly, the same as years past, where, shotgun bunch, or even with this year, more, I would say more than anything, you saw a lot of trips tight end. Obviously, a lot of that could be attributed to TNC and, a lot of the big things that they did this year in the MCS. So it's kind of a copycat league, right? When one person sees it, everyone wants to do it. So it's just funny. Once J-Wall won won the Madden Club Championship, I saw a ton more people run trips tight end. So, like I said, kind of a copycat league. So, but probably the biggest ability I would say at the beginning of the year, and just going back and just looking back at my videos early on, probably the biggest abilities was had to have been Acrobat, just with how crazy the animations you got in the year. And at the time with Acrobat, it was only one AP. So if you wanted to go ahead and have an entire Acrobat secondary, and then I know also what people would do is that they would put edge threats, which I believe at the time edge threats were only 2 AP. So you could have 2 edge threats, and then so that's 2, and I believe the AP cap was at 10. If I'm not mistaken, if you guys know for sure what it was at the beginning of the year, please feel free to comment down below. But I believe the AP cap was set at 10 at the beginning of the year. So you had 2 edge threats, and then you could have what, like 4 or like 6, whatever. There was a ton of acrobats that you could have out there, and obviously there was inside stuff as well. But probably the trend that I saw most along in the year was obviously the acrobat with the edge threats. And then as we went on along in the year, I got to the point where acrobat was great, but at the same time with Madden, and you'll probably hear me referring this a lot throughout this, kind of little show or podcast that I'm doing here tonight. Acrobat is such a hit or miss ability because it just because of the different types of animations you'd get that, I remember there would be certain times where, you would swear that you thought you would get an interception, and it would just go right through your defender, and it would go to the wide receiver that it was getting thrown to or who was it intended for. And in some cases, you would whiff on those attempts, and basically your opponent was able to go ahead and run away with an easy touchdown. So unfortunate that happened, again, the beginning of the year. And then also alongside with that, with people using Acrobat, obviously the meta really, I would say probably from start to finish, from what I noticed, was the man-to-man meta. It was very, very difficult to try to throw against man with just how OP it was. And I think a lot of that just is attributed to not only, Acrobat, but then eventually as we moved along in the year, we had the bench press meta as well. And if I believe also with bench press was only 1 AP. So what people were doing, if I remember correctly, they were using bench press with Acrobat, I think is what some people were doing. It was either that or they were doing bench press with like mid zone KOs or something like that. All of them were relatively cheap abilities at the time, whenever before they got increased. But yeah, that was another ability that was very, very frustrating to play against, just because it completely took your wide receiver out of the play. And I remember the crew. So I'm in a crew here with TBI, aka Toxic Boys Madden. If you guys don't know us, you will eventually. It's we've one of our members or crewmates actually found out about the bench press, and found out how powerful it was. And this was like right before it really got hot. And then eventually, like as soon as we found out about it, all of a sudden it just spread like wildfire. Everyone was really running bench press man to man. It was crazy. So there's that. And then also just thinking as just some of the other metas as we went along in the year. Probably the most frustrating meta to play against, even besides bench press, had to have been the one step ahead meta. Again, a very cheap ability to use out, where you could literally just do your whole entire, or either your entire secondary or most of your secondary, with the one step ahead, where it made it pretty much impossible for you to try to really pass, unless if you were maybe like using your running backs or if you were using your tight ends. But yeah, again, even then, people would go all out and just go 5 one steps, because I believe it was 2 AP at the time. And so you would literally just and you would think, with abilities like route tech or, whatever the wide receiver abilities were, you would think that those would help you get separation, but you would throw the ball, and again, just because it's such an animation driven game, you would throw right at the defender, whether he would swat it, pick it off, whatever the case may be, and it would just result in just a turnover, something bad happening really, more often than not. So that was frustrating to play against. And then really after that, the meta really from that point, for a little bit of time. It wasn't really around for that long. Was the mid zone KOs where it pretty much had the same reaction, I would say, as Acrobat. If you were running zone, for a little bit of time, that mid zone KO was also kind of popping. But again, they buffed that by or they nerfed it by increasing the AP. So if there's one thing that with EA, what they did recognize, what abilities were OP. It's just the thing that I hated about it is that it just took them a while to really respond. Like it's kind of one of those things where before it really gets ugly, before it gets bad, like let's try to make some changes. Have a little bit of urgency. Be transparent with us. Let us know like when to anticipate those changes as opposed to waiting so long. Because man, it was frustrating having to play against like one steps for an extended period of time. So there's that, and then really after mid zone KO got nerfed, kind of resulted in people just going back to acrobats, at least from what I noticed. But really, the meta that has been really remaining from that point up until where we're at now. We're almost in June now, which the meta is really just send two, or even at times send one defensive end or D tackle, whatever, or one pass rusher really, and just play zone coverage the rest of the way, or man coverage, whatever you decide to do. And it amazes me how bad offensive line really is, that it allows you to send one person or two people and you're able to get by five blockers. Like that's one thing that I wish that was better about the game, would be just the well, I'm not even trying to I'm trying to figure out what I want to say here, but really just the the offensive line play. It's just so bad. It's just so inconsistent. Like, so the night before, I was actually playing weekend league, and this made me to the point where like I didn't even want to finish weekend league. So I had 99 Jonathan Ogden, who I just picked up, powered all the way up with all the chemistries, whatever. So like he's juiced to the gills, 99 overall. And my opponent has, I'm not sure who the defensive end was. It wasn't anybody good, but no abilities, no nothing. And my 99 overall right tackle, Jonathan Ogden, was getting his life shedded away like nobody's business. Like it was frustrating how often it was happening. And so again, it's just, I feel like with offensive line play, it's just something that we've been complaining about for years now, with how bad about it. And I think a lot of that just falls on the devs, just to kind of as far as programming that. And a lot of this, and I usually try not to come up people's necks, but at this point, just because with how incompetent the EA team is, I have to come at Clint, man. Like Clint, ever since he's taken over for, I believe it was for Rex Dixon, the game has gone severely downhill from that point. And I mean, if you just want a perfect example, just look at the offensive line play. The offensive line play has been horrendous since he took over. And that's not to say that it wasn't perfect whenever Rex was around, but I don't know. Like going back to the years that Rex was around, while yes, Madden did have his flaws, at least it was something that I was willing to deal with, as opposed to how crazy the game is now, with just being just so animation driven, and just so many things that just go wrong for no reason really. So there's that. So that's just talking about just some of the defensive metas. Now, as far as offensively, just kind of thinking about how that kind of transitioned throughout the year. Like I said, at the beginning of the year, I mean, a lot of people were just mainly just running the ball because they were just trying to get a feel for what the game was going to be like. And I will say this, the game, it felt good. Like, as far as just like running the ball, just running with your offensive players, it felt fine. I had no issues with the, player movement. I know Madden 20, it was a little crazy, but it is what it is. Coming back off from 2 years ago, Madden 19, where the running was super clunky, the player movement has been better. Now, I will say this though, transitioning to next gen though, that, I mean, for me, just coming from someone that's really played a lot of next gen since the beginning, I can understand why people didn't like that the next gen movement, and why so many people decided to stay on current gen. But I didn't mind it. I mean, I felt like the thing that I liked about the next gen is the fact that you're not like, and I think probably what a lot of people got mad about was the fact that they weren't able to use, like, at least defensively, they weren't able to really just go and use it pretty much every single route. You kind of had to pick and choose what you wanted to take away and then kind of depend on the computer to do everything else. So whereas where if you were on current gen, you could lurk almost every route in the middle of the field and not have to worry about that. So honestly, I didn't mind that, but again, I can kind of see from current gen's perspective, trying to transition to next gen, why there'd be some complaints about that. And I do apologize. I'm kind of jumping back and forth. I'm really, like I said, just kind of speaking my mind as far as what the game was like this year. And but anyways, just to go ahead and jump back on topic though, we're talking about offense. So again, running was kind of the big thing at the beginning of the year, and then really from there, I mean, there wasn't really too many big changes on offense, I would say. I would say the biggest things, were obviously shotgun bunch. Let's see, trips tight end was big. And then later on in the year, PA boot over out of a bunch tight end was a overly used play, and the main reason for that was obviously because of how overpowered the delay fades were, where defensive logic was pretty much nullified. Like, there was no defensive logic. Even if you manned up the delay fade, as soon as your opponent would scramble out with the quarterback, the person that was originally supposed to be manned up on the tight end would just go after the quarterback, or the man would just absolutely just disappear, just like be completely taken out of the play and leaving the tight end completely wide open. So that is something that I hope that they do change first and foremost, is those delay fades with how bad they are. It was so annoying. Like, even if you completely bagged it, like your opponent would just get some fluky, like, at least whenever I played against it, no matter how much I bagged it, my opponent would just get some crazy fluke and still be able to get the play off, whether it be to one of the crossers or to the tight end, wherever the case may be. And, not trying to complain by any means, because, I play the game for what it is, but at the same time, I'd be lying if I didn't say it was a frustrating experience to go through. So there's that. But yeah, outside of that, really, not really a whole lot to really talk about offensively. Now, if there is something that I'm forgetting, by all means, please go ahead, chime in down below, and let me know. So there's that. Now, as far as some things to change, just wanted to go ahead and really, that's what I mainly wanted to talk about in this video. Now, obviously, yes, I wanted to talk about, like, kind of the things that we saw throughout the year, and then more importantly, just talk about, like, what changes need to be made for going into Madden 22. And I may look to try to make a part 2 video, or I try to get some other content creators and other Madden players involved. I think that would be really, really cool. Just more than anything, just to facilitate that discussion there, and just get more opinions, and really just hear more, because obviously everyone's a little bit different as far as what they enjoyed, and what things need to be changed. But I feel like, for the most part, the community has a good idea, at least I would think, as far as what needs to be changed. So now, just looking at some things, I'm using a list. Actually, it's not even my list personally. I just got to give a shout out first and foremost to Bobby V, well-known comp Madden player and content creator. If you guys aren't aware of him, go ahead and check his stuff out, whether it be on YouTube, Twitch. I mean, he's been grinding like crazy. But he actually had this tweet that kind of inspired this video for me. So I actually saved the tweet, and it's basically just a list of things that he wants to see in Madden 22. And I feel like this is, I would say, generally speaking, this is what a lot of people would like to see, I would say. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So first thing that we have on here is get rid of the under 2-minute quick hike. I mean, I didn't mind that, because I felt like it helped. It definitely helped you, at least offensively, in the 2-minute drill and whatnot. But from a defensive standpoint, I can understand why that would be frustrating. I'm not sure why they actually implemented that in the game. But I agree. I mean, I wouldn't mind if they took that out. So obviously, you're just gonna have to have better clock management skills. That's one thing that's really underrated, I would say, in Madden, is clock management. Because at the end of the day, that's what ultimately could win you or even lose you a game. So get rid of the 2-minute quick hike. I'm on board with that. No problem. So he actually touched on the O-line as well. So O-line, he talked about punishing for sending minimal rushers. So again, kind of touching on what I mentioned earlier, where, if you send one or two, then you should get punished for it, which I completely agree in that case. If you guys remember back in, I think it was Madden 16, it was I think it was 16. Um, if you pass committed and you only sent like one or two, your whole defensive line would get absolutely pancaked. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how I'd feel about going back to that, but after playing, send one or send two the whole entire year, I wouldn't be opposed to going back to that because I feel like then from there it punishes the the opponent for sending minimal guys and just depending on just playing coverage the whole time. So I'm on board with that. It was nothing was more frustrating than having to play and just sit back and just really just kind of waste time just trying to find a wide open receiver against minimal pass rush. And even then, you just get crazy block sheds, and you sometimes you would have no time to throw against one or two people, which is unreal. So there's that. Allow multiple double teams. Again, this goes back to like O-line logic, which again has just been so horrible for the past couple years. And there's times where I always think that I'm double teaming, for example, like the ends, because that does happen, in the NFL. And then obviously you have the interior, or well, I mean, if you double team, use the guards to double team on the outside. But I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling. But if you could do multiple double teams, that would be helpful too, especially going against edge threats. Now where that does kind of leave you exposed is in up the middle, through the gap, a gap. I think it's an A gap where the D tackles play. So I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of gotta have to pick and choose your spots as far as where you want to go. So that's one that I didn't really think of. Pick up DB blitzes. So this was actually something that I completely forgot about whenever we're talking about like kind of the defensive meta throughout the year, which for a little bit of time, people were running 1-4-6. Again, an infamous blitz from the year before in Madden 20, where basically 1-4-6 was just the meta and it was unreal. That was another reason why people ran the balls, because no one wanted to face 1-4-6 in that case. So, and for part of the year, 1-4-6 was hot again, but then eventually they nerfed it. Or at least I thought they did, because contains weren't nearly as good as they were before. But now, of what I'm starting to notice, as the year goes by, towards the end of the year, 1-4-6 is kind of back. So like, it makes me think like, was 1-4-6 ever really dead and we just didn't think to use it? I don't know, but that's just me, again, just me rambling. So DB blitzes, obviously, with the implementation of the gap. What was it? I think it was in Madden 16 or 17 where they implemented it, where like you couldn't send like actual A gap blitzes. Like it was basically picked up by the gap. The CP is basically it's just something where like you couldn't send like actual A gaps or B gaps or whatever. It was basically from that point, from I think it was from Madden 17 up until now. It's basically if you wanted to send pressure, it had to be from your secondary. So even going back to like Madden 17 with the infamous nickel blitz, that was, if y'all don't remember, I mean, if y'all didn't play Madden 17 back in the day, count your blessings, man, because there was no more frustrating feeling than having to play against that defense. It was crazy to go against, because it shut down not only the pass, but it shut down the run too, which was wild. So there's that. And then pancake punish for pass committing, you run. Yeah, so that's what I just said earlier. So there's that. Let's see here. MUT practice mode. Honestly, I would love to see that. I'm just trying to figure out how exactly they would do that, though. But it would be good because, there's no worse feeling than, buying a card on the auction block thinking that it's going to be good, something new that drops, and then find out that it's just not all that it was cracked out to be. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, you try to go back and sell it, and you're selling it for like 2/3 of the price or a third of the price because it lost so much value. So it would be good to do that just so you could also test out abilities as well, and really just go from there and just allow you to kind of, implement your, figure out what you want to do, whether you want to pass, run, do mix of both, whatever the case may be. My practice mode would be cool. It's just I'm not as knowledgeable, so I'm not exactly sure how exactly they would do that. But if they could do that, that would be a massive W. So there's that. No next gen movement. So This is going to be interesting what's going to happen this upcoming year because supposedly, word around the street is that, there's going to be a current and a next gen version of Madden 22 as well. Now, I'm sure we'll probably get more news of that, as EA Play comes up. I think it's in July is when that comes up. So there's that. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I don't even know which specific one that I would play. Honestly, it would just kind of be depending on if at least for me anyways, it'll depend where the comp is. If it's on current gen, then I'll just rock current gen. But if it's on next gen, then obviously we'll go there as well. So we'll see. But kind of what I touched on earlier, when it came to the movements, over 100 stats. I don't understand why they went away from that back. Back I think the last year that they did that was Madden 16, where they had over 100 stats, and then after that, now every stat's capped at 99. So I feel like cards lose kind of that luster. But not only that, but don't have the stats start off at I think it's like at a 50 is where stats start. If you guys know me, you guys will know that I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show as well. And they actually start their stats at 0, which is kind of crazy. So I feel like better cards would I think you would be able to tell more of a difference between cards if you actually had not only over 100 stats, but if you had card stats start at 0. So for example, let's see, kickers and punters, for example, so if you're doing a fake field goal, we know how much of a risk it is to do that with someone that's not, an actual quarterback. So obviously, with them, having terrible throwing stats, it would make sense because, they're not a quarterback. They don't throw the ball. They're on special teams. So having lower 20 throwing stats or whatever would kind of I'm just spitting out random things here, just some things to think about. But seeing those 0 stats would be kind of interesting. Like I said, I feel like it would make certain cards stand out more than others. So either start stats at 0 or over 100, either or. I'm fully on board with. No physical chems. Yeah, I mean. This kind of goes back to the whole training thing as well. Just overall, I feel like just training in general is just such a scam. If you guys remember, at the beginning of the year, power ups were crazy overpriced, especially when it came to some of these team diamonds and whatnot, because it was impossible to pack the training players until they dropped the training variety packs. But you had power ups that were going for more than the actual card, which is unreal. So I mean, that was just frustrating to deal with all year. I feel like training is just the biggest scam. What I would hope that they could do, is actually similar to what they do in MLB. And I know I'm making a lot of comparisons to MLB, but that's just because that's just what I'm playing a lot more here recently. So, where they have what's called paralleling, where depending on the stats that you get on MLB, you're able to kind of upgrade your player like that. So, for example, I believe it was the 95 player of the month, Byron Buxton. But I'm able to upgrade him to, I believe it's a parallel 2. So his overall goes up 2. And I believe I have him at a 97 already. So, I feel like that's cool too, because then, they're more of an incentive to use certain players and boost them up that way, as opposed to just using a currency or training. I feel like that would be really interesting as well. Just, and also to be able to stat track, I feel like that would be awesome. But I don't know how Madden. I mean, it just blows my mind how a smaller studio such as SDS is able to do way more than a bigger company such as EA. It just absolutely just blows my mind how that's a thing. So, so there's that. Shouldn't need an ability to throw the ball exactly. That was probably one of the biggest things as well, was the gunslinger meta, where for example, in regs, you could only use really the Green Bay Packers because Aaron Rodgers was the only quarterback that got gunslinger, and then also if you wanted a substitute for that, you had Tom Brady, who had set feet lead, which even set feet lead wasn't the greatest. It was inconsistent as time. So really, the only regs team that you could actually use was the Packers, because how bad all the other quarterbacks were, because they floated everything. So yes, please make more quarterbacks usable. Don't make us wait till almost the end of the year where then all of a sudden every quarterback gets gunslinger. Just make every quarterback usable right off rip, and then just kind of let us pick from there. Let's see here. Obviously, I'm coming down to like the final 10 minutes of the video, so I'm trying to make sure I don't keep rambling. And like I said, what we'll probably end up doing is we'll probably do like a part two where I can get some more players or content creators involved here. So, let's see. So high balls more accurate. Yes, there is nothing more frustrating than throwing high balls in the back of the end zone and then hitting the popcorn bender in the stands. That was frustrating. Theme teams harder to create. Yeah, I agree. I feel like he said it says space out the teams. So yeah, I mean, I felt like getting theme teams this year was pretty easy, and I think a lot of that just had to do with the cards that they gave you. So for example, like this year, like Sam Mills and Leroy Glover, they and Andre Johnson, they all got the team cams. I think they should just do away with that. I feel like it just made it way too easy to get 50-50 theme teams. Just space it out more, just like he says. I agree with that. No undercut interceptions from 20 yards out or at the line of scrimmage. That's interesting. I hadn't seen that much. Maybe not 20 yards out, but at the line of scrimmage, I've definitely seen that. That's horrible. There's no worse feeling than throwing a pass that you see is wide open and then all of a sudden just gets picked off by a defensive end or blitzing. Like I've had cases where been fortunate and I've had like a blitzing safety that is in 3-3-5 wide and just completely just pick a pass off to a wide that would have been to a wide open receiver. So I can understand that. No more accurate overthrows. Yes. I still struggle to understand like why we even have that in the game. I mean, I can understand maybe doing that on like sim style, but not like comp or whatever the other game modes are there. So there's that. Motion snapping. That's something that was very, very underrated. Like for example, like I ran the Pats playbook at the beginning of the year because of one of the formations, U-trips. I really enjoyed running that formation because you could motion snap, and then all of a sudden they decided to just take motion snapping completely out the game. Like I just want to know like who asked to take motion snapping out the game. I just felt like it just made that offense almost dead, at least in my opinion. But obviously you have other guys such as like D. Croft that basically made their name out of that formation and made it work. So. But I mean, I would imagine he probably noticed kind of a difference early on whenever they took out motion snapping. So there's that. Fixed delay fades, yes. Again, what I mentioned earlier. Bring back tight end slants. That's something that I didn't really think about. But yeah, I completely forgot. I can't remember the last time we saw tight end slants. It's been a while. So fix outside thirds, zone drops, work in the red zone. Okay, I mean, those are really two ones that I don't really notice. But I mean, I would say he's, a higher level player than me, so he probably knows a little bit more about that. I'd love to, if there's anyone that, could kind of give me some insight on that, that would be great. All Madden Weekend League, yes, it just take All Pro out the game, or at least like don't make it, the qualifying mode or whatever, whether it be for the MCS or even just for Weekend League. Put it on All Madden. Like I noticed a big difference right away, between guys that would get bailed out and guys that would play horribly. Like the guys that would get bailed out, they would get bailed out because the game was on All Pro. Whereas if you played on All Madden, they would pay for those mistakes. So yeah, All Madden Weekend League would be cool. Better monthly, weekly rewards would be cool as well. Although, I mean, I felt like the rewards were actually pretty solid. Although they did get kind of stale, towards the end of the year, just because they weren't really updating them. That would be the only thing that I would say. Throw out of sacks, more consistent or eliminated. Yeah, I would be okay with just doing away with it. I would rather just take the sack as opposed to trying to throw it away. Because let's be honest, if you watch a real life NFL game, like how often do you see throw out of sacks in an actual game? I very rarely do you ever see that, in my opinion. So there's that. And then fix the drop picks. Yes. I feel like if you user and you bait and you are able to, force an interception and it's your user, you should automatically catch it no matter what. Like no question about that. You deserve to make that play because you're using it. So I know it's probably a little strong, but that's just how I agree, because you got to make your opponents pay for the mistakes, in my opinion. So there's that. So yeah, wow, I definitely all of a sudden I got shortness of breath there, my apologies. So that's gonna go ahead and wrap it up, though. As you guys can see, I pretty much went ahead. I sold off my entire team. I just got so frustrated with Madden this year that I just decided to go ahead and cash out everything. I may look to, make some additional content with all the excess coins that I have, or I might do some giveaways or something. I don't know. I tried doing giveaways last year, but like only like one or two people entered. So like to me, there's no incentive to do that if there's only like one or two people entering. I'd rather have it to where like, we get a lot of people in there and that way you can kind of build up the hype that way. So may look to do that. Just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. So, keep an eye out for the Madden content though. I'll definitely try to get, some other guys that are Madden players just to kind of give their perspective, and, record that and put it on the channel. We'll go from there. And yeah, let me know. Overall, guys, like what are your thoughts on Madden 21 and like what are your hopes for Madden 22? I'm hoping, I'm hopeful as always. I always try to be positive about things, but I can't say that I'm, super optimistic, especially after this year, just because we all know with EA, it feels like they just kind of, lower and lower the expectations. Like I'm not even really excited about the game right now, but I know, and who put it best? It was Gut Fox, actually, who's one of my favorite content creators. He talked about how with Madden, at this time of year, like the hype is like pretty much dead. Like no one really cares about Madden 22 because we're doing other stuff, such as, playing MLB or like, there's actual sports going on, and a lot of people are, finally able to get out just because the pandemic that's happened and whatnot. So there's that. But I would imagine probably like around July, I think is when EA Play is. We'll probably get some more information and hopefully get some news about a potential beta, which of course your boy will be here to talk about that. So we'll go ahead. We'll worry about that point when we get there. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you guys enjoyed the video, number one, first and foremost, I'd appreciate you guys hitting that like button. And also, if you guys are looking forward to more of the Madden 21 content and then also going into Madden 22, consider subscribing to the channel. And until the next one, guys, this is Dre Knows, and I'm signing out. Peace.